Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stephen King Reviews number 35, 11, 22, 63. Today's review is for the 35th book of Stephen King's that I've read, and my final review for a while until I get more for the collection. Nominated for a 2012 Los Angeles Times Book Prize, Dallas, 11/22/63. Three shots ring out. President John F. Kennedy is dead. Life can turn on a dime, or stumble into the extraordinary, as it does for Jake Epping, a high school English teacher in a Maine town. While grading essays by his GED students, Jake reads a gruesome, enthralling piece penned by janitor Harry Dunning. 50 years ago, Harry somehow survived his father's sledgehammer slaughter of his entire family. Jake is blown away, but an even more bizarre secret comes to light when Jake's friend Al, owner of the local diner, enlists Jake to take over the mission that has become his obsession, to prevent the Kennedy assassination. How? By stepping through a portal in the diner's storeroom and into the era of Ike and Elvis, of big American cars, sock hops, and cigarette smoke. Finding himself in warm-hearted Jolie, Texas, Jake begins a new life, but all turns in the road led to a troubled loner named Lee Harvey Oswald. The course of history is about to be rewritten and become heart-stoppingly suspenseful. In Stephen King's most ambitious and accomplished NPR novel, time travel has never been so believable or so terrifying. A sprawling historical odyssey crafted by one of America's top storytellers. Ingenious. And that's what the praise is, which I will actually agree is quite well due in this case. Now, this is one of the sci-fi time traveling romance story type of books, and it's much different than Stephen King's traditional horror style, but it still has gruesome horror and a lot of thrilling and suspenseful moments. And it actually made me cry at the end because it was very touching and beautiful. Also quite sad. So, for horror factor, I gave this 8 out of 10 because although it's not focused on horror, it still has moments of absolute terror that are quite shocking and gruesome, very macabre in some ways because it's real too, real life violence, right? For story quality, I gave it 10 out of 10. I was skeptical when people said it was one of his best books ever, but now after having read it, I actually tend to agree. Especially for later on in his career, turned out quite well for him. For Suspense Intensity, I gave it another 10 out of 10 because every time I picked it up, I read more each time, and it was sort of like a growing addiction to find out what happened next. In fact, I read 650 pages of it in 2 days just to finish it because it was that intense. For memorable characters, I also gave it 10 out of 10 because between Jake, Sadie, Al, and all the tie-ins to Derry, and actual history, it has some really fantastic characters. And the way Stephen King uses history to his advantage actually gives it a whole new perception of character work in his books, I think. So, with 8 out of 10 for horror factor, 10 out of 10 for story quality, 10 out of 10 for suspense intensity, and 10 out of 10 for memorable characters, the overall rating equals 38 out of 40. It's different from most of King's works, yes, and yet that's what makes it a masterpiece in my opinion. My final thoughts would be that the heartbreaking nature of it, as I mentioned before, made me cry at the end, and upon re ranking it, when I've read 50 of his books. Hopefully, in the future, I will get more for my collection and be able to continue this journey. But for now, this will be the last review for a while. But as I said, based on how much I enjoyed this book and the overall quality of it, when I've read 50, this might be in the top 10 or even possibly top 5 of my re ranking because it really was that good. So, if you're looking for a good book that's not too scary, but it's just an amazing Stephen King book, 11/22/63, that's the book for you. In fact, I agree with a lot of people that it's one of those books that it's just such a good story. And because it is so different and doesn't steer too much into the horror section, mind you, there is some pretty scary shit in this book. I'm not going to lie to you. But overall, I would still say this is a book I could confidently recommend to anybody. Hey, if you really want a really good book from Stephen King, you can't go wrong with this one. So, hopefully, that is a good review to end my, 35 reviews on. Of course, there's also the bonus video where I ranked 30 when I had read 30. We're now at 35. If in the future I am able to read 15 more books, we will also come back, do more reviews, and do a top 50. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully in the future that will happen. At the moment, I wouldn't have any money to buy Stephen King books because of my financial circumstances. But if I was able to get my hands on more in the future, hopefully they'll be good ones too. But for now, I'd say ending the reviews on this one, quite a gem. It's a pretty good place to leave it. So, till next time, I'm your host, Super Comic Guru Alucard. Hope you enjoyed the review and have a wonderful day. Matinee. Peace out.